Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having us. We are starting right in this beautiful live room of Govinda's studio, and tell us a little bit about this live room because as soon as I got here, I was like, "This is interesting. This is cool."
Well, it's an old water tank. I don't know if you can see that in the film. I guess it's circular, which is kind of the worst acoustic shape. Managed to get a pretty cool sound out of it. And I think I've been recording it for almost 20 years now.
Oh, okay. So it's
Yeah.
been 20 years using
And I
this.
didn't move into this house with the intention of having a studio. I just started getting
Work with what you had.
Yeah, I just literally just got too much work and I had to start working.
Okay.
Yeah, so this originally was full of water.
And the water tank was like already cement? Or?
Yeah, and it was full of water. And
Okay.
and from the outside, it didn't look like it was very big.
Oh.
So I put a dipstick in there.
Yeah.
And it was 3 meters high.
Wow.
So I was like, let's drain this thing.
Yeah.
And see, because it's a good height for acoustics. Because short ceilings don't sound good for drums.
Usual.
Yeah.
So tall.
So it was kind of an odd idea. So the first thing is I drained it and I checked it out and I was like, all right, this could work.
Even though you have a vocal booth, people wants to record in here.
Yeah,
even
that's
because
right.
of the atmosphere, I guess.
People just like to be in this room.
Yeah.
God, I think we might have recorded probably 4,000 songs.
Like, tell us about what's the usual placement for example of the drum kit in here? Like,
well, there's 2 things you can do. You can be in the center here.
Yeah.
And it's a small room. It's about 5 meters by 5.
Yeah.
And surprisingly has a big sound when you apply room mics and things like that.
Do you leave the door open?
No, I shut all the doors so we can hear what's happening in here with the recording. And if we place it here, it's probably the biggest type sound.
Okay.
But if we place it with
the drummer sitting here.
Yeah, and if we sit, let's say, back against those stones,
okay,
then it's a bit of a drier sound, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
So it sort of is a little more closer sounding. It's subtle, but you do notice it with the overheads.
Okay.
So if you want a tighter sound, I mean, the good thing is this room can do kind of like a big John Bonham kind of drum sound.
Yeah.
Or you can a rock kind of drum sound, or you can have a more closed-in Beatles type.
Yeah. Okay.
Earthy kind of dry sound. So sometimes I put a gobo on the bass drum. Like I've got another kick drum which is bigger.
Okay.
And I'll make a tunnel. It depends on the kick sound I want.
Oh, you make a tunnel. Okay.
And I'll make a tunnel and I'll put the mic outside only one mic outside the bass drum and try and catch the waveform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you want to catch the peak.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say, but
okay.
If you imagine it's got a frequency, and I'm going to put the mic where the peak is and I'll just adjust it to try and find that peak. And then that's why I capture the kick drum on an open sort of sound. But otherwise, I can put a mic in there or put a speaker on the outside.
What mic do you use for?
Just a D112.
Okay.
Which is quite a hated mic. That's a pair of bee's knees ribbons.
Ribbon mics.
If you look over here, they were made especially for me because they're for like low volume. So the preamps inside of them, they're like a Phantom Power sort of deal. And I use them mainly for acoustic things because when you record acoustic guitar at a distance with room mics, which I often do.
Oh, you do that?
I'm quite a room mic person.
And those are the ones.
Yeah, they've got less noise. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now at the moment they're in a tight configuration, but you can tip them up and you can put space out in the room. Maybe even just use them like a bit closer. Naughty looking mic down here, which is a stereo ribbon. I think it's made for X Audio. I can't actually remember the brand. They've got a double brand actually. It's made in England, and I really like that. It's quite cool on overheads as well, and it's in like a XY configuration, like a bloom line configuration. So they're reverse face to each other, and then they're kind of like facing this way. So in hardless stereo, you get a pretty cool image.
Cool.
You can actually reverse the phase as well, make them both the same phase. But for drums, they're awesome because you just find the right spot and you just tip it. So the center is sort of like here.
Yeah.
The kit wherever you want it. And then you get sort of like a pretty good centered room mic that still has the stereo spread.
Cool.
Generally, I find room mics for most stuff really good. The lower, the better. Especially the drums because you pick up a little more,
up the reflection,
a little less cymbals, a little more beef of the drums.
Yeah.
So, but it is depending on the drummer, of course.
you have the option to have like the guitarist in the control room.
Absolutely, yeah. So every room, including the airlock, the vocal booth, and the main recorder room, they can all be repatched to each other. So technically, you could have 2 amps in here, and 2 amps in the booth, and an amp even and a bass amp here, and you can basically record all live if you want to. You know what I mean? Like, so.
What you got there apart the Supro? What's the other amp?
Yeah, so that's a Supro. It's a remake. It's pretty simple. You just turn it on.
What's the Amwatts?
The Amwatts is made by an Australian guy, an amazing amp builder. He builds amps for a lot of guys, and that is a really unusual amp. Both amps have 15-inch speakers, which is weird. Okay. Right? I don't know if that's, you know, but most amps have 12-inch speakers. So this amp, the Amwatts amp, it's kind of got he basically put the circuit, I believe, of a Magnetone vibrato. Oh, okay. Right? And then a reverb, like a very subtle reverb, spring reverb, but the amp itself is a copy of Stevie Ray Vaughan's amp that he used at this famous concert called the Elmer Combo, I believe it was called, something like that. And that was like I think it's a Princeton or something like that. So it's a Fender type amp. But he met the guy who actually originally modified that amp and got the original Fender transformers. And he put the whole thing together in its original, because he was a Stevie Ray Vaughan nut. And he rebuilt it exactly the same way with it's got a little boost sort of switch. So I think it's only 40 watts, and it's probably one of the best amps I've ever heard. Do you use the SM7? No, not on the amp. No, not often. But I should try it. How do you mic the amps in here? Well, I do something pretty interesting. So sometimes it depends on the guitar, what we're trying to get. But if I want, say, one guitar amp, I'm going to put a dynamic mic and probably C12s. But the thing is that I might use 6 mics. So if I want a single guitar take with nuance of the hands, not double tracked, and I want to make it wide, I'll have the room mics. Room mics as well. I'll use a bit of MS to sort of like widen them a bit. And then I have imagine this condenser mic and a dynamic mic. And I can use different ones. I don't mind SM50A or even a D112 sounds cool, which is really weird. So you got condenser, dynamic. I blend them in, but I have one coming back this way a little bit. So one pair is probably 2 inches back, and they're panned hard left and right. Now that doesn't sound so good mono. But we don't do mono anymore. I check it anyway. And then what happens is you get like a stereo sound. Of course, one side feels a little bit like it's leading because it is coming to your ear faster. But you have a little more width of this, and you have plus the room mics. And with 6 mics, which is because you've got digital, who cares? You can use as many tracks as you want. I now have a guitar sound that's a little more involving for the listener. It's not just a simple one mic, boring, pan to the left, and then, or whatever, a pair of mics and pan hard left and right. I love that. If you have 2 of the same amps or even 2 different amps that sound similar, you can do something the same. You can have it at the same distance. Right? And you just have them hard left and right. Apart all the gear and these amazing opportunities you had, and like when came out in your head like the idea of like being like a producer, engineer? Oh my god, that's funny. That's a funny question. I never intended to be a producer. Because you were a musician originally, obviously. Yeah, musician. I guess I was playing guitar when I was late at playing guitar, in my opinion. I didn't start till I was like 13 maybe, or 14, somewhere in there. And I was awful. And I drive my mum nuts. Sorry, Mum. And she would just be like, put some headphones on. So I think around that time, there was like this crappy little Zoom box. And it was one of the first ever guitar things that you could just plug your guitar in and have headphones. Had effects and things. It was awful sounding, but I didn't care. I was young and I could just burn my ears out and no one would yell at me. So I was playing a lot of guitar, and at the same time, I started picking up the drums. My dad was a drummer, and I was picking up the bass. So at one point, I was playing gigs with a jazz funk band, guitar, and having to pull 20 solos a night. You realize how good you are then. You know what I mean? Because you got to try and come up with 20 different ideas. So that was really a good challenge. And sometimes that band would have me playing bass, and I didn't know any of these songs. They just got me to come in. I was about 17 this time, and they said, "Do you want to come and play some guitar with us in a cafe?" And I thought, why not?
Yeah.
And they were yelling chords out to me. I didn't know any of this. And because I just pulled it off, and they just go solo, lead singer just go solo, and it's just a really amazing bass player and drummer. And they were touring, they used to tour in Europe playing like funk and jazz in their bands. I can't remember the names of them now. And so I was doing that, and I was playing some folk stuff and this kind of like grunge rock stuff. So I was playing sort of three things at once. So I came to Queensland to do a project with these younger guys that I grew up with, and that just sort of fell through. So I went back. This is about age 16, some was 17 or something in there. So I came back to Sydney with the band I was jamming with, and that was called Peyote. And that band ended up getting signed like 6 months later to Mushroom Records. Yeah. So that was Molly Meldrum kind of found us. My best friends at school's stepdad was Kevin Caveman Shirley. I don't know if you've heard of him. So he had a big record with Aerosmith and Baby Animals around that time. And he used to bring his guitars back that I didn't know at the time were Aerosmith's guitars and say, dude, can you fix this guitar? I was like 15. Wow. So he used to take me in the studio occasionally, and I used to look at these big SSL consoles, hundreds of channels, and Studios 301 in Sydney. And I'd be like, this looks so complicated. And he said, it's so simple. His whole ethic is amazing. He's just such a disarmer of like overwhelm. You know, I'm just this little kid going, this looks, and I think I got a bit of the bug just by looking at it. And he just said, it's all simple. It's the same thing each channel, right? So you just, once you know a channel, you kind of know it all. And I still don't get it. You know, so getting back to later on when I signed, so the first person I worked with was Tony Cohen, who was a big producer back then. He just finished Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds record, the Murder Ballads, I believe. And he was also working with a band called Cool C. These are kind of like classic Australian stuff. And the Murder Ballads had like Colin Minogue and PJ Harvey and artists like this one. It was amazing. So he's working on that, and he was a bit of an out there dude. You know, I won't mention too much about him, but he used to come in and be a little bit messed up in the studio. But we also had a guy called Paul McKercher who was engineering, and he's very famous, like producer now. He did like Sunk Lotto, Little Birdie, but anything from like really grungy stuff to really clean stuff. He's really, so he was our engineer on our first record, 3 songs, $28,000 back then. So I don't know what they will cost now. Jeez. So with Tony Cohen producing, he didn't do much. He just sort of kicked back. And Paul would be like at the helm getting our takes, and he was amazing. And so I guess I could just watch. I was just lucky to be like around a lot of great people and influenced by them. I watched Paul a lot. He was just an amazingly patient sort of person. And when it came to mixing, here's the funny part about it, is that Tony ended up mixing it, and he mixed the whole thing after many days of recording in like what 3-4 hours. And he put like too much reverb. Like we're quite a raw, grungy kind of band, you know. One thing kind of raw sounding, and he just sort of, and he just done powder finger, by the way. Sorry, I forgot to mention that he did powder finger just before us as well. And he just put too much reverb and things, and we didn't want reverb. We just wanted like really raw. And we loved the way it sounded when we came out of the room when Paul McKercher had it just cranked. It was just like this huge sound. We're like, yeah, this is so great. And so we were so disappointed. So we had to try and negotiate with the label. Can we get it remixed by Paul? Which is a big deal. They're like, what do you mean? Tony Cohen's like the best, blah, blah, blah. We're like, no. Can we just try Paul? Paul had it great. So we did. We got it remixed with Paul. And it still sounds good today. Like, it sounds amazing. And he remixed it at Charing Cross on an Eve console. It was a 1073 board, 80 series board. And studio tape machine. So it was a pretty good, a bunch of outboard gear, but not a great deal, really. And I guess, you know, getting back to why did I get into this? I already had, when I was about 16-ish, you know, like I said, I had tape machines. I was just curious about it, you know, like, what is that?
Testing it out.
Yeah, testing it out. Yeah, it's curiosity. And I thought at that stage, well, if we're paying him 28 grand to make a record, which is a huge amount of money now, in it's 1990s money, I was like, well,
should I give it a go?
Yeah, I was just arrogant enough to just think, well, I could give it a shot.
Did you design the room, Govinda?
I did, actually.
Cool. Yeah. All right. What was the thought behind? What was the plan? The shape. Let's start from the shape.
Originally, there was no plan, so it was just it was a basement. So it took a little while to figure out how was I going to do this. Because there's 2.5 tons of ceiling in here, by the way, between the floors. You know. So that's not supported on beams. So this room is actually a floating room within a room. So I built a few studios, believe it or not. I've built about 5 now.
All right.
So I've got, you know, studios are weird. Like, there's no perfect studio, you know what I mean? Like, there just isn't. But the thing is, it's just about trying to make the best of a bad bargain. And I think I've been in some of the biggest studios in the world, and they don't always sound that great. And some of the flattest sounding rooms sound empty, and you're really struggling to hear, like, what's the bottom end doing? So, you know, it has some flaws like every room, but I basically knew that I had to splay the walls. So each wall is 12 degree splays. So there's two 12 degree splays to get more room. So the stepping just means I get more room. So if it was 12 degrees, you imagine I would have lost all that space there.
Yeah, right.
You see what I'm saying? So if I just cut two 12 degree splays and push them in, then I now have a bit more room, a bit more space.
Cool. So like you manage to balance between compromising between like
I've got
the
some
sound
things
and
like
the space as well.
And so the back walls diffuse, and that made a difference.
That big diffuser is
behind them is bass traps, and like
there are bass
these are bass traps.
Yeah, I thought so.
You can hear that bottom in there. So that's the frequency it's taken out, which I think is about 60 to 100 ish. You know, it's full of.
How deep is the?
It's actually about a meter. It's about a meter and a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe 1200. You know, millimeters. So
all filled up.
All filled up, yeah. And there's a few funny things about this room like that. Like, for instance, you know, behind here is inert. There's little gaps here, and there's inert like a it's like a polyester wool. You know, so it's non-toxic. It's inert, chemically inert in this room. You know, so I use macro suede, which is expensive. I just use it for the look, and it was something that's durable. And you can, the stretching is a bit difficult.
Oh, right.
And the panels are the same. They've got chemically inert. You know, they're just literally on plywood, and they're Velcroed.
That's it.
And they've got the, you know, chemically inert wool, and then they're wrapped, and they're pin cushioned for the look, you know. So it's a bit of a pain. You have to plan it out, and the room shape's a bit of a pain. And also we've got the air conditioning, of course. You have to plan that. So you know, and it's not like on a standard.
How do you?
You know, it's a send return air conditioning. So you know, so air's coming in, and then air's going out, and usually that's only done for one room. In a house, it'll come under the doors, and you have these returns, and it's all the same thing. Now, if you imagine if you did that between the rooms, then I don't have soundproofing. So I have to build diffuser boxes between each room and between the garage, and there's a big process to get it in here. But it's fairly.
How long did it take you to the whole
do it all?
Plan?
I think really it took about probably 10 years to sort of get it all going with the air conditioning, maybe longer.
Oh wow.
So I had it was often pretty hot in here for quite a few years.
So did you start the band that were like in here sweating?
Sweating, yeah.
That's why you're bringing towels to people.
Exactly, yeah. I was like, you better take that towel, boy. You're looking pretty sweaty.
Okay, so I guess Govinda, this is your centerpiece of the studio. The console, your design, your project, your lifetime project, I guess.
My headache.
Your headache.
No, it was a labor of love between my technician Rod Harris, who were in partnership with this company, Harris Doyle Audio, and yeah, we collaborated for quite some time, and this is it. The end result after many years. We actually started building the frame before we even knew the circuit. So some things are kind of lying around until we, you know, wanted to lower, like just not something like bending down, but just so it's out of the way of the speakers, you know.
Oh, it feels very convenient right there.
Yeah, I had my monitors originally when I had my last console. Initially, I had the monitors to the side, like the old school kind of, like that kind of thing you see in America. Like you got a little trolley and stuff, and I hated it because I'd tweak a plug and then come back to the middle and go, what happened? So now I could just I never leave the zone. I can just tweak something.
True.
Which is good. And it's the same for the mixing. You can reach everything pretty much from the middle.
Yeah.
So
it's like
you know, it's all reachable, ergonomic. You know.
Yeah.
All these little.
You showed me even like the pedal for
the
talkback.
There's a pedal you can push it now if you want. There it is. There, look.
Hello.
Look, there you go. Look, it's gone.
Oh, good.
So and so if you can push the talkback with your foot, then it allows my hands to be free while I'm talking to the artist. and saying, hey, would you like to do another take, or what do you think of that? And I can move the take around, or manipulate something, change a plugin that they want to change, like want more reverb, these sorts of things. So I found that when I was pushing talkback for many years, I was like, oh,
one end is gone.
Yeah, you can't do anything. So then they're waiting for me to work so I can work. While they're tuning out the guitar,
efficiency.
I'm talking to them, you know. Sort of thing.
Like, what was the original idea? Like, okay, I'm going to design and plan with Govinda Doyle like a console. How did it come up in your head? The idea.
It was just a crazy dream.
Okay, a dream.
Actually,
yes.
I literally had a dream. So it's funny to say this actually now I think about it. But so I have to start at the beginning. So I started with tape machines, right?
Okay.
So back in the mid to early 90s. And when I was 16, I had my first tape machine. So that was 1992, right? So I had a 8-track tape machine, and it was so rickety that you couldn't stripe a track of SMPTE and get the Atari SD with a MIDI to sync. It wouldn't sync up very easily.
Okay.
So it was a bit like the wow and flutter would make it jump a bit. So I went from that to ADATs really about the late 90s, early 2000s, when you could sort of record 8 to 12 to 24 tracks. But I wasn't using Pro Tools back then. I was using Logic and Cubase and things like that because they were on the Atari SD, you know. And back then you'd have like a disk to load, you know, Cubase or Logic, and then a disk to load the song. And you only had 4 megabytes of RAM, you know, 4 megabytes. And that 4 megabytes was like $6,000. You know, like, so it was such a different era, but that was like amazing to work in that era because you could really see how things worked and that we take for granted in the computer. You know, like just the synchronization, MIDI and audio, it's just seamless. It's so great, you know. So I don't miss rewinding tape. I don't miss rewinding ADATs. Funny enough, actually, let's go back a bit. When I started working, when I was on tape, I wasn't using much Outboard gear. Like just a compressor maybe, and just very simple. Obviously I was learning as novice. Now, I was able to get some sounds that I liked though, that had character, like crunchy drum sounds and cool stuff, right? So it would have been, when I went to ADAT, I was like, where the F did my sound go? Right, it was clean and there's no hiss and there's some cool stuff going on and it sounded really professional and like...
it was too vanilla.
So each kick hit, I don't know if you know the difference, but say for instance in digital audio it's so accurate that a kick hit just a little bit louder and softer you can perceive, and your ears in the real world compress a drummer. They compress when that drummer's playing. You don't think, oh, that snare was a little bit soft, but digital really showed that up. So then I started going, I got to get more compressors. I got to try and get some sounds a little more even. Right, so that's where the trouble started. And then I had a digital desk. It was a O2R, I think, Yamaha O2R. And that was cool because it had compressors and EQ in it, and you could recall it, right? Now, they weren't the greatest sounding things, but they had some, you know, you could definitely start to iron out some of these problems that I was starting to see with digital, right? Because digital's like so accurate that there's no, it's not helping you. It's just giving you a really clear picture. It's so accurate that your ear didn't even know that existed. It didn't know that acoustic guitar was a little bit less, or, you know, just a tiny little micro volume changes, right? So compression became more important. So then I switched from ADAT and a desk to the computer and start mixing the computer. And again, I'm like, where did my sound go? And the plugins back then were so average. And then I think I honestly, getting back to it, I had a dream one night that I had a mixer again. You know, and it was in my garage. I literally was such a strong dream. I was like, where's my mixer in my garage? It's not there. I was like, God damn, I want to get back to mixing analog, but using the computer, right? So use the computer what it's best for, which are, you know, some of the plugins are amazing, like dynamic EQs and things like Soothe and, you know, multi-band compressors and declicking and the tactile feeling of analog and some of the sounds, the way it actually sounds. I don't think computer does it perfect yet. It probably will soon, you know, but I feel like when you think about it, like we have a performance that's in the air, going from a microphone becoming a white waveform, going to a digital converter, now becoming a digitized waveform, going into the computer back out, and then you're going to mix it within, say if you're in the box, and bring it back out, right? It's calculating now all the voltages to sum it. Now, if you have real voltage and it comes in and it sums, there's a sound to real voltage. There's actually a sonic imprint, and that's what I was missing. I was struggling mixing because when I was combining, it was like, no, it's just a bit cardboard sounding. Something was a bit funny. Now, I've got to say that since then, mixing the box is amazing, and I don't have anything against mixing the box. It's just not for me at this stage. So from that point onwards, I started talking to my technician, Rod Harris. I need to build a mixer. He's like, you're mad. I was like, but it has to be discreet. And around about the same time, I was experimenting with electronics and building DIY kits and starting to learn a little bit about building a microphone and what, around that sort of 2008, 2000, I sort of started around then. And I just realized there was just something missing and I wasn't. So I bought a Yamaha PM 2000, got it shipped from America, and we rebuilt that thing, Rod Harris and I, and we actually modified the circuits and it sounded amazing. In fact, it's pretty comparable to what I have here in some ways,
Even mentioned before, like you don't have like a background on electronic engineer, but like you learn and you start to understand the difference with your ears.
I was wondering what is it about a sound quality that I like? It doesn't have to be pristine. Something like 9 Inch Nails or a garage rock sound is awesome. It doesn't have to be all clean and clinical. It's just that some things sound good clean sometimes, or some genres of music, and some things sound good dirty. So it's like a good, there's a good balance of things. I mean, the reason why everyone hated digital so much from tape was because tape has 1% distortion. Did you know that? It has 1%. Now digital has like 0.00 something, 1% distortion. So you're not getting any color, which is great. So you have this really amazing pristine thing, and it's funny because we all have all these pristine converters, which is so amazing right now, and we've all got these old compressors and all these junky kind of things, and stomp boxes and things. We're chucking things through, trying to get things out of it because everyone has the same plugins, So it's almost like you're trying to find your sound, your character, and the things how you want things to be, and that's what I love about music. There's just no rules, so you can just grab whatever you want and experiment, and there's no wrong or right. If you love that sound, then that's cool. This one's pretty cool. This one's like a remake of an old National kind of thing, and it's like a resonator. It's a brass body one, so that's cool. Some of they're steel, some of they're aluminium. I quite like this guitar. It's a cool one. And it's an open tuning. Just a really kind of standard, but it's all solid back and sides, and that's just it's a tangle, I think, of all things. Well, perfectly in tune. Just the way we like it. This is a bass. This is a bass I built when I was a kid, when I was 16.
Oh, cool.
And I was originally a bass player in a band I was in when I was younger.
Yeah, you were mentioning before.
And and I I became the guitarist.
You were playing with this one.
So I gave this bass to the bass player, and then I got it back like 20 years later.
Oh.
But it'd been a little bit butchered.
Uh-oh.
But I kind of like it butchered. It's all right. So it's still the best bass I've ever heard. And for some reason, I fluked it.
He did use it in those 20 years?
No, he didn't. He just sort of sat in the corner for a while.
Oh.
And it's just, when I built it with this guitar.
You built it?
Yeah, with a guitar builder, yeah.
Wow.
And I used to go to Botany. I used to live in Sydney, Northern Beaches. And I'd catch a bus, like, into the city, and then a bus to Botany. So it was like a big day.
So you're originally
from Sydney,
when you were playing with the band in Sydney?
Yeah, in Sydney, Okay. And so I built this guy called Gerard, and his company was Gillet Guitars. And there's another story about him, but basically, I got to build guitar with him. I do all his work and do a couple hours on my.
How old were you?
Like 15, 16,
okay.
somewhere around there. Pretty young. And this is nothing special. This is a Tokai, but it's got flat wounds,
Oh, okay.
So it's 60s sort of sound,
Yeah, right. Cool. Need that.
That sort of stuff. And then we've got a Gretsch Silverjet. Even I forget what this thing is. The 50s reissue. But perfectly in tune again.
Yep.
Should have tuned them, huh?
That's why we should have.
And it's a pretty cool sounding guitar. It's, what has it got? TV Jones, pickups, hard to beat. Way easier to play than Les Paul.
Okay.
And it's got chambers in it, so it has a different sound. A fixed bridge. I didn't want the Bigsby. And then I just have like a pretty good Strat with custom wound pickups. Let's go in Texas.
That's a beauty.
And it's not old. It's just made to look old, like most of the shit is these days.
Yeah.
And it's just really good for sparkly kind of stuff, you know. In a song, you know.
That's what they're made.
Yeah, exactly. I've got another guitar I could show you too, but worked at Gillet, and I didn't realize I was working with him, not personally, but in the same factory. Okay. Re-met him. His name's Tim Kill. He builds these beautiful guitars for like Xavier Rudd and whoever. So I hit him up and I was like, "Do you want to collaborate a guitar with me?"
Wow.
And he's like, "Yeah." Okay. And it's really weird what we did.
Oh, okay.
So I have to bring it out.
Yeah, you have it upstairs.
It's like a sitar. It's in the room. I'll bring it out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We'll I have to bring it out. So I have to show you that one because it's got 18 strings.
Oh God.
So it's like a sitar and a guitar melded together.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking forward.
So I have to bring it out. Yeah, it's a good one of creation.
And the idea of the collaboration of making like a guitar like this is like, why would you? Because like I want to have like a guitar sitar kind of like.
Yeah, I just wanted something for myself because I'm always making everyone's music, and I wanted to have something for different type of music.
Yeah.
And so I selfishly kind of put it together, but I really wanted to make it like a devotional type music as well. Different sort of music, guitar music, and so it's not something I use on people's records, even though they play it sometimes. I go, oh my God, I just can't. It's my thing,
It's my thing.
It's my thing. Yeah. So
do you write songs yourself?
Yeah, not so much anymore, but I still am making music, and I'm collaborating a lot with people. So I can write songs, but I'm not a lyricist. So I'm more like a person who, in the production, I guess I'm putting together songs with people and helping with arrangements and and sometimes I'm helping with lyrics, because the lyric might be stuck.
It's part of it.
So part of it, but I'm not rewriting the lyrics. That's personal,
Yeah, I guess. And so you use it for just your own playing and
just to sort of spark an interest in playing different style of music, rather than I got so sick of standard tuning and I was like, I want to challenge myself and try and learn these weird chords,
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing, it's the open tuning and.
Yeah, cool. Sounds beautiful.
All right, where do I start? Well, basically, it's like a 110 volt rail, Class A kind of deal, which doesn't mean anything too much. It's also not.
Yeah. How would you explain
it's
that?
Not tube. It's not.
How to be like.
Yeah, it's not tube. So it's actually solid state, as I mentioned before. It looks like it should be tube, but it's not. It'd be too hot if you made it out of tubes. Yeah. It'd be a heater.
Yeah.
And you can get problems, obviously, with parts drying out, heat. So there's a lot of considerations when you're building multiple channels. So there's a lot of things that have to be considered. So it's got a particular sound, that's for sure. So basically,
so let's start.
So it comes in
the preamp section.
So on this console, number one, we have two different types of meters. So we have the Nixie tube meters, which do the peak, and that's kind of like post transformer.
Okay.
So if you start using the limiting function, which we have, you'll start to see that its ceiling changes. You start to see it move differently. And the VU meters are just RMS meters like any other VU meter. But basically, you've got like a 4-band EQ, inductor EQ. You've got a low cut, you can bypass the EQ.
Bypass it as well.
But one of the functions about it is so there's clusters these are in clusters. So that's the frequency selection, and they're in stereo. So everything's left and right, and it's 0.1 dB accuracy per side.
Oh.
Right. So it's master and grade every channel. Jeez. So when I go to 370, it's very close, 370 per side, and when I'm moving it to say 4 dB, that's pretty accurate. 4 dB minus 370 hertz, but I can turn that band off I just take it out of the signal, right? So I can compare like, what's 370 minus 4 dB doing?
Oh my God.
Off and on, real quick. It's quick, like this. And I go, actually, I'd like to hear that plus.
Yeah.
Right. So you can do that with each 4 bands. I can disengage all the bands and have the EQ on and just let it be.
Yeah.
And I can go, I'd just like to add the low. What was that doing the influence? And I'll just add the mids and the low. So you got highs, and the highs are the only thing that has it's a shelf. Nothing is shelved. Everything is actually just peak. It's got a wide. I can't remember the name of the. I should know this. It's so funny. My brain today is like, what is that? I think it's called a. Basically, as you turn it up further, the peak becomes a little sharper.
Yeah, okay.
It starts off wide.
Yeah.
What's that called again?
The Q.
Yeah, the Q. I know it's called a Q, but there's a special word for that.
Oh, okay.
API EQs do it as well, actually. And I don't think Neve do it. Neve have a pretty, just the bump is the bump, and that's it. But this sort of starts to get a little sharper as it comes up.
Okay.
So if you give it a lot at a certain frequency, you might want to cut, say, 200 or 180 out, and you can cut out a little sharper. So it just sounds different as you progress, and it's one makeup amp, which is unusual. So it makes it feel like a little squishy. So it's a flowing kind of a sound. It's not like this hyper accurate thing. It's like a thing that you can really play with. And a novice can get a cool sound in minutes. You don't have to be an expert to use this EQ at all. And that's we put the nerdy work in, so you could just basically
have fun.
Yeah, just have fun with it, because audio is meant to be fun.
Yeah, that's
in my opinion. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the behind scene is all the nerdy stuff.
Yeah,
but then this is like for you to
exactly
get a good sound.
Yeah, so the EQ is a great sounding EQ. I mean, we managed to get a plug-in deal. They really like the sound of it.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get to that in a minute. And so one of the features is that this.
Yeah, that's the feature that I wanted
we have magnetic tape saturation. So it's actually magnetic. It's never been done before that way. So we have voltage going to a gap of the Apple transformer, and it's shaving off the tops of the transient. Yeah. Right. Just like a tape machine. So it's a very similar. It's
gentle like compression.
Yeah, and it can be quite aggressive for drums. Certain things, and it'll even crackle on guitars if it gets too gnarly. It just goes, just like in Stairway to Heaven, they record it too loud. The guitar strikes, those famous guitar strikes, and he hits it, goes goes. So you can get that, which you don't want. Yeah. No one wants it, but you can if you want it. It sounds just the same, but the difference is it has super wide bandwidth. You see? Yeah. Because we have like was it like 4 hertz to 150 kilohertz with transformers. So the transformers are wired very specially, and they got special loadings to achieve that result. It's very unusual.
And then you got your fader section.
The fader, yeah. So the fader is relay. So the fader is post-transformer, balanced. So we have 4 legs of audio, so 2 per side, balanced. And this does each side 0.1% accurate as well of a dB, which is, you can't hear it. So each click is a different 0.75 dB. And you think 0.75 is weird, like why not 0.5? We did 0.5, you couldn't hear it. Oh. On the computer you can hear it a bit easier. Yeah, right. I just couldn't hear, in the analog world we couldn't hear it so much. So we did 0.75 was great.
And you can hear the difference.
Yeah, like exactly. If you got a kick drum and you think, I just can't quite hear it, you just go 0.75 up, and it's like you usually want more than that, like 1.5 dB. Yeah. Like maybe 2 of those. So the idea was that manually I just take a photo and put the name of the artist mix, and I put it you can put it into Logic actually, or into my phone, and then if they want to come back to it in a year, 10 years, whatever. Hopefully 10 years. Who knows with software? But you can recall it. So I can move on with the work that I'm doing. So I'm not stuck with a console sitting here getting dusty. Yeah. I can use it every day. I can just stop and start and a mix anytime I want. It's got to recall it. It takes about 5 minutes. You just got to compare it. So of course it's manual, but to make this automated would have been like $1 million. Oh my god! So it goes click, 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 click. Yeah. And we didn't want to do that. We just wanted to build something that was old school. So this is always, if this fader's in this position, and it has these 3 dots illuminated, that is perfectly exactly what it was. Yeah. And the same for any of these because they're switched.
Of course, yeah.
So this is basically a type of switching. There's no audio passing through the fader. the audio is actually passing through relays, which are programmed by the fader.
Amazing.
In a Fibonacci sequence. Yeah. So, is it all stepped? So, you can recall it. And it's the same for the master section. This is stepped.
Yeah.
You just take a photo of that, and it's going passive. So it's going balance, passive, into the master section, into transformers, and it goes back to unbalanced for the summing, and then back to balanced. So this is a passive summing.
Yeah.
It's not powered summing, it's passive, and these are all attenuating, so they're turning the volume down. Everything's at full, this just turns it down. Yeah, so one of the super interesting things about this console is the impedance doesn't change very much. So like on a normal console, you've got your fader, which is resistance, and as you turn the fader down, the detail is less, there's less detail at a low volume, right? And so the optimal space for a fader is usually in the top sort of quarter. Right, and that's what sounds the most detailed, the most strongest, or clearest, or whatever you want to call it. With this fader system and the EQ, the impedance isn't changing hardly at all. In fact, even at the master bus, it's not changing much. Okay. So it's maybe varying like 1 to 2% of impedance change, like every fader included. So at a very low volume, the fader still sounds super detailed. So that was one thing I wanted as well. So there's I wanted a lot.
Yeah.
Poor Mr. Rod.
You asked a lot for sure.
Poor Mr. Harris. That's why it's Harris Doyle, because he delivered just the most incredible list of things that I wanted. Yeah. And he might have. I mean, initially when I said stereo, he thought I was mad. Because it's like summing buses. And the thing is with a normal mixer, right? If you think about it, they were built for tape machines. So left and right would be like track 1 and 2, and so you have these pan pop things, and that's cool for tape, if you get what I mean. But when we're in the box, if I want to send a snare drum out and I want to add a reverb, well, now I need an extra channel on an analog mixing board. And the trouble I get with the most was bass guitar. If you add a stereo chorus of bass guitar on the old console, I'd always have a blank channel for bass, waiting for that time where I could push it up and then have to clone all the EQs. And it would never be perfect, but that's okay. Yeah. But it wouldn't, I'd need an extra channel. So each channel is stereo because of that reason. So I can have bass, all the bass duties are in that channel, in stereo. I can add a plugin on a section, there'll be stereo, even a send, and just put it back into that channel. Yeah. And it doesn't change. I'm just adjusting the volume of the bass and the send. And it just makes mixing a lot easier. So I can have reverb on the snare, not just a send. It's because if you think about it, I've got a snare here and a send there, and then as soon as I start changing the volume of the snare, the send's too loud, right? And there's pre and post and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. I'm not, it's not about that. It's just like, well, why not just add it to the snare? You can still send it in the computer, and then put the send back into the snare channel, and then that volume, that balance is forever, and you just have to adjust the snare sound.
Yeah. How did it happen that someone came to you and said like, oh, I want to develop a plugin out of your gear?
Okay, so when we're building this in Rod's garage, this console was sitting there for about a year and a half, 2 years. Okay. And he fixes a lot of top producers around this area's equipment. There's a lot of really cool producers around the Byron and Gold Coast area. It's amazing, actually. It's awesome. So he's fixing people's equipment. They're coming into his workshop and seeing this console almost finishing, and they give him a listen, right, on headphones. What's going on? And then people go, whoa. So what happened is that a lot of people were saying, can you build an outboard gear version? One channel, like, in an outboard rack. And so Rob was like, can we do that? And I was like, oh, I just want to finish the console. But I started to think about it. I was like, well, I'm not opposed to sharing anything. I'm not a believer in this is the way I get my sound. I'm never going to show someone. I'm happy to show you anything. It's that's cool. Because even if I do show them, they still have to figure out how it works for them, and even if they like it. So what happened with that is I was like, okay, we'll make an outboard piece. So I put the console on hold, literally, and we made an outboard piece of gear. And I think we made 2 to start with. It was 2. Yeah, it was 2. I have to remember that. And that was 18 grand to do that, because I had to make face plates, and we had to what was it? It was like there's a lot of prototyping, what I mean? Like each faceplate is like 4 or 5 goes, and some stuff had never been done before, like LEDs behind, like these discs that were like cut out with laser cutters on one side, so you could actually, and they're black, and then they're like layers of this plastic, you know, and the laser cutter cuts it so deep so you get a plus and a minus sign, and you put an LED behind it. Like this, we had to do that, you know, like actually physically like figure it out, you know. And I'm the idiot that goes, I want this to happen. I could have just had no LEDs, but to me, the visualization, the tactile feeling, and then saying, I know what's happening. I know that's plus, minus, and that's important to me anyway. That visual aspect, you know, because you know we're living in a world of plugins. Like it's visual, you know. So I think if you in 2024 now, like, and we built it like what 2022ish, we finished it, but we're designing it like, you know, 2018, 2019. So I think it was 2019, I had the Outboard pieces ready to go, and one wasn't functioning. I think we had one together, one was like had a fault, and I was about to catch the plane to Nashville now to actually introduce it. Oh. You know what I'm trying to say? And it was literally, I was like, you know what, Rod, don't worry. I don't have to go to Nashville. You know, this is something I wanted to do. Yeah. You know, just to take it to NAMM, which is the big music show. Yep. And in it being that he figured out in the last hour what it was just something that hadn't been soldered, all the hundreds of components, and something just got missed, and he figured it out, and it was working perfectly. And I put it into a case, and I jumped on the plane. I forgot my passport. Oh! Luckily, I got someone to bring it to the airport before I jumped off on the plane, and so I went to NAMM. Against all the odds. All the odds. I went to NAMM. Yeah, it was funny. And I was really, I had to just surrender. Is it going to happen? Is it not? And this thing's like 12 kilos, and I'm like in this box. So I'm you know, traversing across LA Airport, and you know, caught a plane to Nashville. I had some friends, like Paul Wolf, for instance. He has he calls it Wolf Audio now. He had fixed audio, and he also had what's it called, Tone Lux, and then but then he owned API. So he actually reinvigorated API. That guy's a genius, and he's a good friend. So I knew him a little bit. And we got to hang out a lot at Nashville, and he's had some new products as well. And had a little booth, and people come and have a listen. And he had a laptop, and they could see what was happening.
What year was that? When?
2019, just before COVID. Just before COVID. Yeah, just before. It was kind of interesting. And I met a lot of guys there. I was hanging out with Jack White's producer, Vance Powell. Vance Powell. Super cool dude. I hang out with everyone. We just had, they were just so, the Nashville people were just the best, you know, they really are. They're not very pretentious, so they're very inviting, you know. So I had a party at Vance's studio. And really? He turned around at me, there's this live band playing, and he's like recording it as it was happening. There's hundreds of people walking out of the studio. And he goes, "What do you think, Govinda? Does it sound any good?" I said, "Bro, don't ask me." Because he made one of my favorite records, you know. My favorite record he made was the first Dead Weather record with Jack White. Oh man. Yeah, it's one of my favorite records, right? Oh, really? Yeah, I just love that record. Yeah, so it's so trashy sounding. You know, this is just, for instance, you know, I got this brass console, and people probably think he just loves pristine sound, but I love that trashy sound. And so I told him how much I love that record, and yeah, he's a real cool guy. Oh man, like I love Vance Powell, and I'm like probably Jack White is my favorite artist. Yeah, he's one of my favorites too. I think it's great what he does. Yeah, I love he's very open-minded, very innovative. Talking of equipment, should we have a look at that rack there? Oh, okay. A 176B remake. Okay, yeah. So that was the first. It's like a Verumu kind of thing. Okay. So it sounds a little bit like a Fairchild. Not exactly. I've got a Fairchild building at the moment, actually. Oh. That's another story. That's in the background. But, building something else going there. Yeah, there's always something going on. We'll get there. But that's a beautiful sound compressor. It's a valve compressor, and in a sense, it has a lot of the characteristics of 1176. Okay. Like it's got a really, but it's tube, so it's not the same circuit, but I can tell you the inspiration. That's the predecessor of the 1176, and then the Rev A, which is that one, is the first solid state number, and I think before that was the LA2A. So I've sort of got all. Funny enough, they're all Universal Audio. It's my favorite compressors, it seems. I don't know why. And I like the old stuff. With the Universal Audio LA2A, or the Teletronics, that's old school thing. I've got some other cells, the opto cells, because they run on opto cells. Yeah. And and a friend of mine from, oh God, where is he? He's near Nashville. He builds them. They're called Kenetech, and he's the topmost builder of these in the world. And he built me like, so I've got the original sounding one, which is a slow attack, slow release, and this one's a fast attack, fast release.
Okay.
So sometimes if I want a different sound,
you just swap.
I just pop it in. Yeah.
Oh.
Turn it off, pop it in. You know, it's really easy. Yeah, just pull it out. I mean, I rarely change it from its original sound, but sometimes, I just want to use it for something different.
Yeah.
It really is a one-trick pony that is amazing.
Yeah.
And this makes it a two-trick pony.
So, and on the right side, we got some pre's.
Yeah, we got.
Like, I was wondering.
That's our one. So the Harris Doyle preamp. It's a prototype. So 110 volts, I believe, at solid state, which is unusual. Transformer in and out. Been using that for years on vocals and overheads and.
So you had it for a while now.
Yeah. It caught on fire a few times. No,
okay.
Kidding.
Using it too much.
it got smoky when we were first making the first versions. Believe it or not, it was funny.
Okay.
I remember being halfway through a session. I was like, "Oh damn, that smells." And I remember taking it back to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just change the bias." It wasn't dangerous or anything. It was just like, "Oh my god, that resistor stunk."
Then obviously we got a few of the Neves 73s.
They're old ones re-racked. Because usually what happens is I've got the original modules and I pulled some of them out, and some of them I have some parts and they're kind of like a mixed match of some remake cards. They're all Neve cards though. And so they're kind of re-racked, because if you put so if I had 4 in a rack, that would take up 6 spaces.
Okay.
And I was like adamant. With this studio, I will not have more. If I can't fit any more gear, that's it.
Yeah, you told me. Like, you got what you got.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to have walls of gear. I just want to focus on the music.
Yeah, but of course, like I mean, like it's a
classic sound. You know,
it's classic sound.
Yeah, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
For what it does, and then you've got.
What do you use them for? Like now, considering that
usually for drums and guitars. Yeah.
Okay.
Drums and guitars. Yeah. Sometimes a vocal, like sometimes it sounds cool with an SM7, but I find the SM7 sounds best with the API remakes, their classic APIs.
Oh, okay.
Cappies.
The cappies.
Yeah. And also we forgot to talk about those EQs on the bottom there.
Yeah, I was
they're
wondering
unusual.
Actually that one was.
Yeah, they're I think they're white audio. They're really unusual. You don't see them very much. And they're
using for mixing?
No, just for recording.
Okay.
Like sometimes acoustic guitars or something that has some bumpy little frequencies, because it's a graphic EQ with pan pots. But the cool thing about it is it's all inductor EQs. So it's not. I don't think I have anything in here when I record that's chips. I don't use chip preamps. They're all basically. They're all proper components. Not just chips. So there might be chips in the LED meters.
Oh yeah.
But that's just more for function.
Yeah.
But in the circuits, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
It's chip based. I actually changed the amplifiers to be discrete, and then they're inductors, so you have like a little more natural sounding graphic. So if I want to take some frequencies out of something I don't like, I just plug them in. They pretty much don't sound like anything.
Okay.
Until you change the frequencies. And you obviously got the EQs on the Neves as well.
Yeah.
And then underneath you got 1290s. So that's the 3 stages of each Neve preamp.
Yeah, okay.
There's 4 versions of them.
Cool.
And then down there is a funny little thing. It's a stereo widening.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't use a lot.
The blue one, yeah.
But sometimes if you've got a mono sound, like say someone sent you something, you got to mix it. And I'm like, God, that guitar sounds boring.
Okay.
There's some plugins that do some pretty cool stereo widening, but this does something different.
Okay.
Because it comb filters each side and then pans it, takes some frequencies away from the middle and then pans it like that.
Oh,
so your ears hear like the opposite frequencies in little comb filter spikes.
Okay. What are those two?
Oh, those two are great. They're like a Shure level lock kind of thing. I don't know if you heard of the Shure level lock.
Yeah.
Soundtoys make a plugin called the Devil Lock.
Yeah.
And so that's the it's almost like a slightly modified version of the Shure. It's my trick on the room mics for drums.
Oh, okay.
It crushes so hard.
Right. There you go.
And then you have the 2-stage versions. There's 5 of them, which are the VP28s, I believe. That's a VP8 double. It's just a different circuit.
Cool.
So they're pretty flexible. They can do like really stuff that's sort of like quiet, because you've got 2 stages of preamps. Quiet stuff's pretty good with them.
And then you got some
guitar pedals.
Business still.
Okay. So I had a pair of them. I stole one recently. I just didn't use them as power that much. I just found no need for it, unless I was gonna have 2 singers singing at the same time, which is so rare.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good sounding mic. There's lots of mics that sound good these days. Almost unbeatable for any female, and for most males, you sing high a bit. Anything's a bit gritty or bluesy. This is the Heiserman. It's a U47, kind of a clone, and it's a pretty good clone, if I say so myself.
All right.
I did change some things. I think I changed one, was a resistor or a capacitor. I can't remember. Something was changed just to make it sound. The top end is brought in a little bit more.
I've got a little story that Nathan told me. I think.
Choice is the enemy of commitment, and in digital, that's what I'm battling every day. So,
and if you have like a few good mics.
The condensers, obviously, I've got some pencils as well of the bee's knees, and these are C12, so these are like C12 clones. I just had them I got them coated in a cool kind of coating.
Yeah.
And I use these for overheads mainly,
Seems pretty...
Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're heavy. You feel, because they're made out of brass. They're really well made. And the Chandler's a little more. It's got, Chandler is its own unique thing.
You don't get to use it that much?
I use the Chandler a lot. I think I use it the most. It's got a sort of similar sound to a 251 and a U67 with hype in it, and the capsule is a U67 capsule. It's a modified U67 capsule. A lot of people think it's something else, but I had my mic guy look at it, and he was like, "No, that's a U67 with a special circuit to get more top end." Yeah. So I met Van Skills. I met another guy called Efreid Shippen. He's a really amazing mixer and producer. He's won like, I don't know, I think he's like 50 #1 hits and 5 Grammys. I don't know, maybe more. I don't know. How many you got? Sorry, Ship.
He's gonna call you.
Yeah, he will. He's an absolute legend. And a dude called Ryan Hewitt, who done Blink-182 and all these Harry Connick Jr., Chili Peppers. I just can't. I mean, the list he's done is just. I mean, like the National, for instance. I just can't even remember all the things he's done. It's just amazing. And he's a legend. So he comes in the booth, and we get chatting, and he was listening, and he goes, "I really like this." He said, "When are you leaving?" I said, "Well, I'm leaving in 2 days." So he said, "Can you come to the studio tomorrow?" This is after the number finished. And actually, they asked him what his favorite piece of gear was, and that he picked one of us. So we sort of won unofficial gear of the year from what he heard. And then I took that piece of gear to the studio, and he compared it against something else, which I won't say. But I just don't want to be rude. Anyway, and it was his favorite. It was quite a big, well-known EQ. And he put it for the drum bus, and he did an AB. And he just kept turning around at me, smiling. He said, "This thing's fucking great." Oh. This thing's great. You can change that if you want.
That's all right.
You can change it if you want.
We can keep that.
And he said, "Can you leave with me?" And I was like, "No worries, bro." I just trusted that he would just. I just knew he was going to make great music with it, and that's what the idea was. I was bringing it for people to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I left it with him, and then he was working with Rick Rubin not long after that, and made a Chili Pepper record and used it, I think, on that, and a couple other records, like many records he used it on. I did a mastering shootout in 301 in Sydney with William Bowden and a few other really cool dudes down there, and they liked the EQ too, and comparing against some really big mastering EQs. And I didn't intend it to be for a mastering, to be honest. It just wasn't what I wanted it for. But they just wanted to compare it, so I thought that'd be interesting. So when they put up a Facebook post, and a dude named Dirk, who just happened to be the head of Brainworks, read that post, and he just casually DM'd me, and he's like, "So what's the deal with this EQ? Have you got any for sale?" And then I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I was like, "Hey, do you own Brainworks?" He's like, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Maybe we could build a plugin." I said, "Sure." He said, "Have you got one that I can listen to?" And at the time, he was living in Florida, I believe. Yeah, it was Florida. And so I said, "Ryan, can we send that EQ to him just for a week?" Yeah. So we sent it over to him. He had to listen, and he's a little quiet about it. And then I sort of saw a post that he really liked it. and then he had his team contact me, and we had to talk about it, and eventually we got the right deal, and we cut a deal with Brainworks, and he made a plugin. So that was released it was last year, wasn't it? 2023.
Oh, okay.
August, I think it was, somewhere in there.
Oh, so
no,
it wasn't.
So it took about a year. It took about a year and a half to get it done. Yeah, but I was really happy with the result, and amazing team, amazing guys. There was a guy called Win.
And you say you use it still?
Yeah, I use my own plugin plus the board. And the plugin has some extra things that are more flexible. For instance, you know, like it has some like an input gain. Like you can really drive. Like you can like we didn't have an input gain.
Yeah, okay.
You just drive it how hot the converter goes, or how hot the music goes. So there's a few extra things, and a stereo widening option, and transformer in, transformer. There's extra options which I thought were great.
Yeah.
So I was just super open to their creativity with it.
So how long did it take? Like he moduled everything from that.
Yeah, every component.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, every component. So it was a modern technique, and they do a lot of stuff for Universal Audio and other companies.
Oh, okay.
So their modeling is pretty paramount. It just happened to be the graphics started getting good too. So I got some pretty nice graphics on. It looks quite, it looks really good.
And how does it compare?
I've never actually one for one compared it.
Okay.
But I know from the characteristic of my console that it's very close.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be, because I just know it's got a quirky EQ, and when you boost some frequencies and then cut some close by, it does a little bumpy kind of thing.
Okay.
And it looks like a pool tech, and it does the same thing. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Cool.
Really happy with it. So my technician Rod Harris, he's the genius behind a lot of this stuff here, especially the console and the speakers. So the speakers and amp. The amp is a class A. I don't even know how many volts it is. It must be about in the 200s or 300s of volts. I think it's 250 watts RMS aside, and the speakers obviously handle about that as well. The speakers are interesting because they're dipolar ribbons, and they've got like a 9-inch driver, and they go from 300 kilohertz flat down to 22 hertz. So really and there's no sub, so that's it. So apart from the dipolar tweeters, it's a two-way system. Incredible. So I could have other speakers. I don't need to compare it. I just listen on my phone, listen on some stuff afterwards. Yeah. I'm pretty confident in this room.
Okay.
Yeah. What I get, what I can get out of it.
Translates.
Yeah, and it's a very open sound. So it's a very special. It's almost like a cross between high fidelity and studio speakers. But if something's nasty, if something's really good, it's revealing. There's no in fact, even the console, there's nothing between the speakers. We had a whole bunch of really cool songs, but I didn't actually know what was happening, because we had maybe a year and a half or a year where we were recording together, and I thought that I was maybe recording Angus and Julie's record, and each time Julie was going to come in, he'd go, I want to come in and record Govinda. And they kind of record separate, which is kind of interesting back then, And I was always saying, you should record together, And when they worked with Rick Rubin, he was like, record together. And they say, there's a magic when recording together. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from their manager, who was their auntie at the time. And is their auntie, was their manager at the time. And she's like, why are you breaking up the band? I was like, whoa. I'm not actually, I don't know what you're talking about. And she goes, because Angus says he wants to do his own record and break off. And I was like, oh no, I'm not encouraging that at all. I just thought we're doing his own thing. I could start to realize we're doing his thing. And so I started to realize that, and we're collaborating. But I said, I'm not encouraging them to break off. And because she put so many hard years of work, like in London and in Australia, building up their brand, and they were already quite well known by then. So anyway, we all talked about it, like civilized people, and we had a song on his record called Big Jet Plane, right, that we'd already done, and the record label and Kathy said that we really like this song, so Julia ended up adding some vocals, and we used a different string arrangement, and then it got very popular.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I didn't want to continue with that sound so much, but I had a lot of really amazing folk artists actually that were really great, and a lot of rock bands. And I do a lot of rock and a lot of metal. Like I work on a huge variety of music.
Prog rock, Mars Volta style.
I do some heavy music, just not so much now, like in the last few years. But I think I was always doing at least one a year because I would handpick it. I wasn't going to pick just anyone.
Yeah.
You know, I was like. If they came in and they're motivated and they're together and they're good and they're passionate about it, I work with them because I don't want my ears grinding off all day. If it's something great, then I'll grind with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I work on anything from really like soft pop, you know, even electronic. You know, people probably think, oh, he's such an organic recording guy, but I'm happy programming totally.
Okay.
It's just not the most attractive thing for me.
Yeah.
Personally, I've done it since 1992.
Because you're not very active on socials. And,
I don't do much socials.
You have a website.
I don't think it's even functional.
No?
I think there's a link there.
how artists get in touch with you?
Usually they find me on social media and they can contact me there.
Okay.
You know, like a Facebook or you know, Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, I'm on Instagram. I'm just not like posting every day. Like, oh my God, my new compressor is so cool. You know, a creative idea is the winner. You know, it outweighs everything. You know, because you can make records with a laptop and they're amazing records if you have amazing ideas and you can translate them. And I feel like the producer role is like I try and translate and try and get the hyper version of you, because you can get your own version. You can get your own version. You can get your own idea by yourself on your laptop. So why do you need me? So if I'm not going to give you some value, like the hyped up, supercharged version of you, just do it yourself. You know, I'm all for that. That's how I learned. I learned the same way, DIY. You know, it's such a cool thing. And you know, a funny story is back in like, I think it was 1994 when we were signed, we had this incredible lawyer and his name was Owen Trembar, and he was a music lawyer, a famous one. And he used to be on like, you know, morning shows talking about music and the industry and stuff. Now he told us, no one listened, by the way, in my band. They're like, oh, whatever, dude. They're like, just sign the shit. And he's like, there's 21 things they would have got you on this contract, you know. And then I was like, yeah, sign it. But he was saying like, how's this for amazing? Like in 1994, we didn't have laptops that I'm aware of, right? And he said, in the near future, people are going to have laptop type computers that you'll be able to record on by yourself, and all the studios will close down, and the whole music industry is this thing called the internet. Right? And it's going to change the whole music industry in the next 6 to 10 years. And wasn't he right? He knew that in 1994. So I've never been averse to digital. Like as much as I'm trying to make digital sound better with something like this, or better to my ears. It's subjectional, you know. So each to their own when it comes to art.
Oh yeah.
This is the way I want to make my art. Yeah. And be an artist.
What a great way, though.
Yeah. I feel like more like an artist than a producer. I just try. I'm helping encourage them make their best stuff. And if that means we tune a note or don't tune a note, or we use a dirty, crunchy sound or a clean, pristine sound, it's all part of it.
Is it not
it's textures,
art itself?
Exactly. It's those choices that we make, you know, that make it sound what it is.
Well, Govinda, I had the privilege and the pleasure to have a chat with you, and thank you so much for
you're welcome, man. You're welcome,
That was great.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Dankeschön.